Hello, my friends. Brian King here, reporting from iPhone Central. I want to share with you an idea, an approach to parenting that I use. And this one approach can absolutely transform the dynamic between you and your kid, especially if your kid resists seeking help, doesn't like authorities, talking back all the time. And I think you're going to be surprised at just how simple it can be. And what I refer to it as, and this is something I use on Facebook a lot too, so you'll see it in how I post. One thing that you see a lot in parent-child relationships and on Facebook is people trying to be right all the time. They want to be the smartest kid in the room. They want to tell you what you should think, how you should feel, what you should do. And you and I both know how well that works. People don't like to be commanded. People don't like to be told what to do. People don't like to feel dumb. And for a lot of our kids that already feel insecure, that feel like they're big screw-ups, the last thing they want is one more invitation to feel like they're dumb. And whenever they're being told that they're wrong about something, they've messed this up, they didn't listen, do you really think they want to sit there and take that? Or you think maybe they're going to want to push back because they're sick of hearing it? Okay? So what do we do? How do we help them listen? How do we help them accept our guidance without feeling like they're dumb? First thing you want to do is you want to keep them in the driver's seat. You want to validate their ability to think, consider, and make decisions for themselves. You'll see this, and again, I can't emphasize this enough. I do it all the time on Facebook, so you'll be able to watch the posts I make and see the subtleties in how I language things. But here's the biggest contrast between the whole right and wrong, I'm the parent, you're the child. And it's what I refer to as an invitation to consider. So you're not telling your child what to do, you're not telling them what to think. You're inviting them to consider something else. You're not saying that it's the right thing to do. You're asking them to consider something else. Because it's when you make a demand that they want to stand their ground, that they want to resist you. So when it comes to my own boys, who are much more flexible now, they're much less reactive, if at all, because I use this approach. Back in the day when I was saying, you need to stop this right now, this is inappropriate, this is bad behavior, that just escalated them. That made things 10 times worse. And I wish the teachers would catch on to this too, okay? But then I found the softer approach, this invitation. Like when my kids would start acting out, I would ask questions like, so what's going to happen because of this? Is this going to get you what you want? What am I supposed to do now? So that I start to get them thinking in terms of consequences. What's the natural result of this? And I actually touched on this in another video. But when it comes to just conversations where you want to give them some guidance because you see that they're going down this track that's going to cause some real difficulty, or they're sharing with you a belief that just is going to get them in trouble. Like, well, if that person does that to me again, I'm going to punch him right in the face. And there are some kids that would actually do that. They're not just venting. So in a situation like that, you can ask questions like, would you like to explore some other options with me? Again, you're asking for permission to advise them instead of just opening up a lecture. Because if you open up a lecture and your kid's not ready to listen, you're talking to yourself, okay? So when you invite, your child can maybe say, I'm not in the mood right now. But now you've planted the seed that there are other options to consider. Maybe the child will come back later. Maybe he'll be ready right now. And because you've invited him into that conversation, it's an invitation to join you. Is there something else you'd like to explore together? So now your child's not an isolated victim and somebody that's done them wrong. Now there's a partnership. And you can explore this together. Another question you could ask is, are you comfortable with me sharing my thoughts on this? Again, asking for permission. I gave a presentation over the weekend, and I don't know what it is, but sometimes when I give presentations that have a lot of heart-focused stuff, people can become emotional. And there was one young lady that it stirred up some things for her, and she became very tearful. And she started talking about some difficult things she was going through. And I asked for permission to advise her. And what I said to her was, would you be comfortable with me sharing with you what I've learned about this topic? And when she said, yeah, that'd be okay, then I proceeded to tell her. With our kiddos that are defensive and anxious and self-conscious, there are so many barriers up that the more we continue to give them more of the same, of the criticism, we're not going to get through, even though we're the parent, even though we have a lot to tell them because we know so much. We really want to instill in our kids that they know things too, that they have the capacity to make decisions and to seek information. What we're ultimately going for here is to keep our child solution-focused and in an action-based mindset. The one quick remedy to helplessness is purposeful action. You take action and you create a new result. It shows you that you are still in the driver's seat, as opposed to someone that's just sitting there taking punches. So when you ask questions like, there's something else we might consider here if you're interested, it demonstrates that we're not out of options. We haven't tried everything. Or if they say, oh man, I give up, this stinks, I don't want to do this anymore, you can ask questions like, what are you going to do now? Or what are you going to do next? Because although they're throwing their hands up, you want to keep them in an action mindset. You want to remind them that there are still actions to take. It's not simply throwing in the towel. Say, oh, I give up, I'm just going to quit. So what's next? And you keep asking that question because quitting implies that you have just shut off the world completely. You're not going to do anything else. Well, you and I both know that is not a success strategy. More absolutely needs to be done. And when you're out in the social media sphere and someone is really venting a very personal, very emotionally laden type of opinion, you're not going to walk in there and say, well, you've got all the wrong facts. Or let me tell you what you're missing here. People, especially when they're emotionally charged, don't want to hear criticism. That is not the making of meaningful dialogue. Instead, you simply say, I can feel very strongly about this. Would you mind if I share another point of view? You're not even saying my point of view in this instance. You're saying, do you mind if I share another point of view? You're very calmly suggesting that there's another way of looking at this. And because you've depersonalized it, you haven't made it your point of view, you've made it a point of view. That if this person now comes back at you and says, well, that's a bunch of garbage, you're full of nonsense, you can say, oh, it's not me. No, it's just this other point of view I thought would be helpful for this conversation. It's like if you offer somebody a piece of food to try and they spit it out. They're not spitting you out, they're spitting the food out, okay? Same with this approach when you say, here's another thing that might be considered, or another point of view to take a look at. Take yourself out of it so that you can share and things will be less personalized. And this is something that you can do with your kids as well when you're inviting them to entertain other points of view. They can push back and be as oppositional as they want to be, and they often will be. But because you're inviting them to consider non-personalized feedback, it's not only safer for them to consider new ways of doing things, it's also safer for you to put it out there because you're no longer the target. It's these ideas that they may or may not take in, but in my experience, they eventually will, as long as you continue to take the threat out of thinking in a new way. I hope this has been helpful. If so, feel free to share it about. Again, I'm Brian King. I'll talk to you again soon.